to guess. Yeah. Take it away.
Does it feel yet like Groundhog Day? I mean, I think you've had 3 one-possession games. What do you try to get across to the guys? I mean, last year was crazy with that. You may be looking at another one coming up. Hopefully not, What do you tell them? How do you handle getting into these guys' heads, especially the younger guys, in terms of those last 2 minutes, those last 5 minutes? Like, as a coach, how do you coach that?
I think you do your best to simulate those situations so you're prepared. And I thought there wasn't a better case of that than West Virginia game because, typically if you've watched us in the last year and a half, we've had timeouts at the end of games. And in that game, there were so many back and forths with the regulation and the 2 overtimes that you didn't have time to call a timeout or nor have enough timeouts to really talk through what you were going to do next. So we had to operate on the fly. And I think our guys deserve a ton of credit because they did it well. I mean, we executed down the stretch, and we were organized, and so I think that's why we were able, to come out with the win. And I think it's a big step forward. I think our experience, we got a lot of guys who have played some, a lot of college games, maybe not at this level or maybe not, a ton of close ones, but the guys who were in this program last year, they went through a lot of them. So I think we should have a confidence, I know I do, have a confidence in our team when we're in those situations. And again, I thought, the West Virginia game was a great indication of that because there wasn't as much stoppage of play to just draw something up or talk about it before you went out there. You had to execute. There was so much back and forth. They hit some big time tough shots, and we had to respond. And they did it again, then we had to respond. So I was really proud of our team, but we practiced this stuff since we get together. We've been doing end-of-game stuff since June. So I think we're prepared for it. And, yeah, we anticipate having more of these as the season goes on. But I also told our guys, we don't have to be in that situation either. Be nice if we could maybe, play like we did in the second half earlier. So maybe we're not in that situation. I wouldn't say it's overrated. I think it's, in my opinion, I think at times you can overcoach in those situations. I think if you do something really complex that you haven't practiced, now your guys are going out there and they're overthinking. I just think that's really hard. But there was a couple occasions where we did draw up some new stuff, but a lot of what we ran was stuff that we had in our package and we've practiced. But I thought there were 2 possessions specifically where we actually got to the second layer of the play and scored. And so it's a great sign of growth. It's a sign of a high basketball IQ team where team takes away your first look, and then you get to the next layer of the play design, and you execute that part and score on that second or third layer. I think that says a lot about your team.
How much do you guys look forward to this type of an event, playing Blue Bloods? It's a group of really good teams playing in a cool place as well.
Yeah, I love this. This is an event we look forward to every year. And, I think an event that's been great for Ohio State since it began. And, for us, this is part of us building in that, non-conference schedule that includes 5 high major games. There's a lot of teams in the country that aren't playing 25 high major games this year. And, it's something that's important to us. This is certainly a part of it. It's a great stage this time of year. And, we're really excited about the opportunity for a, big time kind of resume building win in front of us. So, and you can count on that every single year you're in this event. It doesn't matter which team you play, it's going to be a big time opportunity. And I think that's what's really exciting.
Jake, by this point last year, you'd been through a little bit of roster adversity, and through 10 games, after 10 games, you lost a player for the rest of the season. You had a guy suspended for a while. First of all, is anyone left after 10 games this year?
No, we're all good.
Okay. So second, how much more cohesive has this been, and how much could that impact you going forward, that you've been able to have your group of guys for this whole stretch with some injuries here or there, but you're not wondering, is this guy going to play again?
Yeah, I think, the one thing I've really enjoyed about this group, and it's evident in practice, it's evident off the court, it's really been evident since we all got together this summer. This is a close group. There was a chemistry that formed really quickly. It was organic. We were certainly intentional about doing things to try to build that and speed that up. So that is a great foundation, right? Listen, we got to keep building our on-court chemistry. We got to keep growing that. There's no question about that. That's life, in college basketball now, because it's so different. So it's not exclusive to us. It's just, it's part of it. But I think having a great foundation gives you a chance to grow quickly, and we've seen that so far in this non-conference season. We've seen this team shown an ability to respond in a big way within a game. We haven't played our best ball consistently for a whole game yet. We're fighting to do that, certainly. But we've showed toughness. We've showed resiliency. We've had multiple guys step up in big ways, and it's been a collective response. Multiple games. You certainly would prefer that maybe we could have a 10-point lead the last 2 minutes instead of either chasing somebody or a one-possession game. But I think those games help mold the character of your team, and our character is really, really good. Starts with, we got great individuals, but they've just really gotten along and bonded at a high level, and I think it's helping us and will continue to help us as the year progresses.
As you guys have prepared for Carolina and you've looked at their tape, you're obviously well familiar with Caleb Wilson. Any part of you that's going, man, he'd look really good in the scarlet and gray right now? And what was it like running that race in that recruitment? Because you guys were right up in there until the end. Yeah,
Caleb's a great player, and he's an even better young man. At least that our experience with him was that way. Was a hard-fought, recruiting battle. A lot goes into recruiting nowadays, but he was a great young man when he was here on the visit. Really enjoyed recruiting him and his family, but I'm not surprised he's playing at the level he's playing at, because I think when you have a talented young player, which he's certainly really talented, who works extremely hard and has high character, I just think those type of guys thrive really, really early on. So nothing but great things to say about Caleb and his family. It's a tall task, certainly for some of our guys individually guarding him, but collectively for us, because he's playing at a really high level and a big part of what they're doing.
I know there's a lot of games left, but last year you rode some of those non-conference wins throughout the season. How important is it to have a couple of those sort of in the bank as you head into Big Ten play, knowing what your goals are kind of at the end of the season and as you look at this game in particular? Yeah,
I think it doesn't matter when this game is going to be played, right, or like what time of year this is going to be a big one. It's not either way, it's not a season-defining game. I think that's the beauty and the curse of, playing in the Big Ten, right? So, and playing, multiple high major teams in the non-conference. But yeah, there's no denying the opportunity in front of us. Biggest thing is we got to go on this stage and we got to play well for, both halves, right? We got to play well for majority of the game. It's, you're not going to go out and play perfect, but that's the biggest thing for us. I think we've been building and we're certainly results oriented in this program, but process driven. And that's been a big thing for us, is just keep getting a little bit better. And so we're excited about this. Our schedule is unique this year because, we have the big time non-conference game in February. And so that's different. But I think for this one, for us, like, there's no denying the opportunity in front of us.
Bruce talked about needing to play better in first halves. You sort of reference playing a complete game. When you look at some of these games where you guys have gotten down, what are you seeing? Are there trends? Are there things that are easily correctable? Like, why maybe do you feel like there have been some slow starts in some of these games so far?
Yeah, I think, if you look at specifically the West Virginia game, I don't know that we necessarily started slow. I think there was some pretty good back and forth. We knew that they were a really tough defensive team. I think the kind of tables turn there. They had some guys step up and hit some shots that, I don't think had shown an ability to do that with consistency so far this year. And then coupled that with we've had some stretches in first halves with a combination of, turnovers and some shot selection issues that teams have made us pay for. And so what can be a one-possession game in the flow of the first half becomes a, down 8, down 9 really quickly if you have 2 or 3 bad offensive possessions in a row. And so I think I've looked at it. I think our biggest struggles have been offensively in the first halves. It's a generalization, but I think we have to be better offensively. And listen, we got to step up and make some shots too. We're a much better shooting team than we've shot recently, and I think that's part of it, right? The other thing that we've had to evaluate, looking at now that we have some data points of multiple high major games and multiple games in general, looking at lineups and looking at, I think there were a couple games where we were a little fatigued at the end of the first half and lost, that kind of last 3 to 4 minutes because of it. So we've dissected, right, all of that stuff. Some of it does just come down to making and missing shots, but I think the things that we can control, we can make sure that we're not fatigued. The last couple minutes, that's something we can control, and I think we can control our shot selection, and I think we're good enough to control how we take care of the ball. So those things are the biggest reasons. There's been some segments in the first halves where we're just not, doing what we need to do to either keep the game right in the balance, or for us have a chance to maybe push it up a little bit.
You've touched a little bit on the schedule here, but I mean, when you're talking Pitt and West Virginia, you sprinkle in a couple of Big Tens, and then you finish a 5-game stretch with Carolina. I mean, that's a December grind. I'm just curious, your thought on this 5-game stretch and then capping it with a blue blood.
Yeah, I think, it's a great way to simulate conference play. Scheduling is harder than it's ever been, so I think there were some things that we didn't, I guess, draw it up, I should say. Our first thought was not to have all of these games right in the. Some of it you're at the mercy of the Big Ten, but we want to play a non-conference road game like every non-conference. That's important to do that. I think your guys need to get that experience. We like the CBS Sports Classic. I think it's big time. That's kind of always going to be in that same stretch, and so when we moved. When we were trying to schedule that game and in talks to do it in February, we had to wait to schedule some stuff to kind of wait to see that through. And, we thought it was done, and it ended up taking, almost a month longer than it was supposed to. And so that caused some complications in the schedule. But the way our schedule, shook out, I think it's ultimately it's good for us to have a stretch like this because that's right around the corner, right, in Big Ten play. So, and the fact that it was mixed in, we had true road game in there, I think is good. And then we had the road game at Northwestern, which was a big kind of response game for us. That was good. So it's simulated Big Ten play, which, again, is coming up here real soon.
It sounds like you don't consider this like a true barometer game. I mean, you've already had some big games. You're going to have big games. It's not like everything's on this game. That said, do you ever allow yourself to be curious about how guys will respond, how your team actually plays in a big game like this? I mean, I know in like football, it's like you never know until that game is being played. Do you know how they're going to play, or is it a little bit of like, we'll see what happens here?
Yeah, I have great confidence that we're going to come out and play well. I mean, listen, we're playing a really good team. There's no question about that. And oftentimes, we discredit their impact on how you play, right? I think there's an element to that, but I think the things that we can control, I anticipate we're going to do really well. We've practiced well. Our guys have been in big time moments already. This isn't the first time for us this year, and we've had to face some real in-game adversity already. We've been in NBA arena already. Like I think we're ready to go. But listen, make no mistake, this event, the CBS Sports Classic, like there's no non-conference event that we're in or game that we're playing that's like this one. That doubleheader, that arena's going to be packed. Like it's a lot of fun. So it'll feel a little bit different, and it should. And I think that's a good thing. I think we have a really competitive group, so I think that'll be a good thing for us. But I think this game will tell us where we are. Again, I do think this game will show us, how we play in this game shows where we are right now. It doesn't define who we are, but it shows where we are because we've been through some stuff and we need to play better for longer stretches. We own that. And we got to do it against a really good team, and I think we're ready to.
Amari Binham had such a good game there in Cleveland, and a lot of speculation coming out of that game that maybe he'd be ready to move into a starting role. And I know playing minutes, not the biggest thing in the world, but I assume you want to watch practice today, but do you have a definitive on what his status will be for the game tomorrow, or is that something you've contemplated?
Well, I think he's definitely going to keep playing a lot, right? Minutes, I would push back a little bit. I think I know what you meant, but minutes do matter, more than the starting, right? So I think what we're trying to figure out again is, how can we play a more complete first half, and looking at lineup analytics and all of that stuff to determine that. So, but yeah, practice this time of year, I think practice plays a really important role in determining, some of that stuff. So we're evaluating that. It won't be a game time decision necessarily, right, where we're going to wake up that day and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. But I think certainly trying to figure out, not exclusive to Amari because he's playing really well in his role right now, but figuring out, okay, how can we as a team, be better in the first half? And there's no denying his energy, his physicality, the motor he's playing with is really impactful. No denying it.
If I can just ask, it felt like you guys have brought him along, I wouldn't say slowly. You've played him as you've needed to play him, but do you think that served him well that, now as the Big Ten's getting ready to start, he's playing his best basketball?
Well, I think he's earned everything he's gotten too. It wasn't, necessarily saying, okay, we got to protect him or anything like that. I think he's, there's been games where you just feel his activity and he impacts winning where you can't take him off the floor unless he gets tired. And whether you're a freshman or senior in the level of games we've been playing, all you're thinking about in that stretch is winning, and he's been really impactful for us. So I think he's earned, the increased minutes, and he's playing with more and more consistency at a high level. I'm not surprised that it's happening. Again, I've talked about this. He approaches a game with just such maturity and great work ethic and joy. But, he's not going to be perfect, right, the rest of the year. I think he's just got to keep focusing on impact and winning and just keep working hard. And if he does, I just believe he's going to continue to play better and better, and that's a great thing for us. So, we just got to, I think, stay the course. And sometimes stay the course right now means he's going to play a ton of minutes. And, hey, if it's a game where maybe he's struggling a little bit more, maybe he's not playing as many minutes. But, he's earned, in my eyes, he has earned the right to play through those type of games too, and to be able to play through some of that and figure it out because I trust him.
Real quick, this question goes back forever, but Do you believe in such a thing as gamers, guys who don't practice well, and yet in the game something clicks? Or not that they're bad practice players, but you know what I mean? Guys take it up a notch, and so it's always hard to get a real exact feel for how they're going to do in a game.
You know, I believe in guys who are like built for the moment. I do believe in that. I think some guys just in those moments of games, end of games, that are just built and wired differently. I think that's a gamer. You know, this idea that you aren't very good in practice and all of a sudden become very good in a game. I think you got to like kind of get to a certain level to maybe be able to do that. So you can probably, become a gamer once you've arrived, maybe, will be a little bit more, I think, true. But, I think some guys, there's certainly some guys have a comfortability on game day that maybe some other guys don't. But, unless you are just, one of the absolute most talented players on the court night in, night out, I think practice is really valuable. And he was, if we had him, he could do whatever he wants in practice. All right, guys, thanks.